Any discussion about foreclosure has to include the fact that we're in an economy right now where there are record numbers of them. You're not alone in this situation, and many people are trying to work this out. And that's part of the reason why we created this video. The government has taken action to try to mitigate its impact on our economy, but who knows whether what they're doing is going to be successful or have any impact at all. I'm basically a free market kind of guy. But in this case, the government does share some blame for relaxing qualification standards and actually failing to regulate the mortgage industry as well as it should have. Our goal here is to help point you toward a more positive outcome in this situation. Now, some of the options you may choose will involve or could involve working with us. Most will not. That really doesn't matter. The main thing is to get you on a path to resolve this and to find you some peace in your life. To do that, over the next few days, we'll need to send you a basic outline of what we're going to discuss and some supplemental material to point you towards some solutions for you. But first and foremost, anyone facing this kind of thing needs to know how much time they have and what their rights are. Now, this is the point where I have to say, I'm not an attorney. I'm not dispensing legal advice. I'm only sharing with you based on 25 years of dealing with this kind of situation and advising people in 4 states in the real estate industry. What I know about this it comes from there. It's a practical knowledge based on actually working with it, and sometimes that's superior than any kind of degree you can get. I would encourage you, if you're able and you know a good real estate attorney, to get advice on this subject from them. But let's get into the foreclosure process real briefly. This video is going to be short, but this is what I want to accomplish for you today. Okay, so what are your time frames and what are your rights? First thing we need to talk about is who are the players involved in this situation. When you got your loan on your home, you signed an instrument that secured the debt on your property. That's called a deed of trust or a trustee. We sometimes refer to them as mortgages, but that technically is a different instrument, but generically it is referred to as a mortgage. Now, that instrument, there are 3 parties to that instrument. The first is you as the borrower. You're called the trustor. The second party is the lender, whoever you borrowed the money from to buy your home, and that lender is called the beneficiary. The third party to the trust deed is called the trustee. The trustee. Now, it's usually named in the deed of trust. The entity named is usually the title company where you closed that loan at. Now, but almost always when it gets into a default situation, there's recorded at the county courthouse a thing called a substitution of trustee, which appoints an attorney or a firm that specializes in handling foreclosure situations. Those are the players. Okay, so what are your time frames? Now, this whole process begins when that trustee I was talking about on the deed of trust goes down to the county recorder's office in the county where you live and records a notice of default. Now that begins the process, and most of you that are listening to this, that's already taken place in your life, and you may or may not have been notified by now. They only have to notify you by mail, and I've seen that notice come as much as 3 weeks after it actually was recorded. So at the point you get notified, you may already be well into the process. Now, that begins the first phase, which is called the period of equitable redemption, which is a 90-day process. From the time the recording of the notice of default until the end of that period is 90 days. Now, what that period is any time in that time frame, legally, the lender has to accept a reinstatement. In other words, if you come up with the back payments and attorney's fees, they have to proceed forward as if the foreclosure had never started. Sometimes, depending on your lender and how aggressive they are, sometimes you don't even have any credit impact at that point. They don't even record any lates on your credit history. Now, after that period ends, begins another period that's 30 days, which is called the publication period. And they publish once a week for 3 weeks a notice of trustee sale. Now, the trustee sale is the final event of the foreclosure process. And that's when that trustee appears at the designated place in the county you reside in and does what they call cry the sale. And once that takes place, the home is transferred to whoever the high bidder is. Now, normally 95-98% of the time that will be your lender. They will bid the amount owed, and they will receive a deed called a trustee's deed that will be recorded subsequent to that sale. Now, once they become the owner of the property, if you're still in it, the only way they can remove you from that property is an eviction process. And that's the second part of this discussion. What are your rights? Now, the lender has certain rights during this time, none of which involve removing you from the property. So rest assured that for that entire approximate 120-day period, you have the absolute right to occupy that property and have all the property rights you've always had. The lender can secure the property if it's vacant. They can winterize it, protect it from weather, but they cannot remove you from the property in any way. So their rights only kick in for that 120-day period if and when you abandon the property or when this trustee sale takes place. And as I said, you become as if you were a tenant who hasn't paid your rent, and the legal eviction process is the only way they can remove you. Now, I don't recommend you being here if everything you try fails, but should you happen to be there, that's what they can do. Okay, all right, that pretty much concludes our discussion about your time frames and what your rights are in a foreclosure situation. What I'd like you to do right now is make sure you bookmark this page, because you may want to return to it later. You'll notice there are 2 scenarios listed on this page that describes life circumstance. They are links. I want you to pick the circumstance that best describes your situation and click the appropriate link. And once you get to the following page, that will be a discussion based on what you've chosen of the scenarios, the things that can be done to make this situation turn out the best it possibly can be. So go ahead and click the link now and we'll continue on.